Early voting is already underway for the May 3rd primary. Now we have a clearer picture of when the second primary will actually happen. The deadline a federal court gave the Redistricting Commission. Plus, students protested the bill. The state's largest school district denounced it. Now Columbus City Council is pushing back against House Bill 616. And we look at why Columbus police are concerned a new law will lead to an increase in stolen guns. Thanks for joining us for Face the State. I'm Clay Gordon, in for Tracy Townsend. A federal court is giving the Ohio Redistricting Commission an extra 3 weeks to make new legislative maps. In a ruling issued this week, the court gave the commission until May 28th to come up with a new set of maps. If that fails, the court says the third set of maps, which were previously struck down by the Ohio Supreme Court, would be implemented. That would allow for a second primary to be held on August 2nd. This decision came after several people had filed a lawsuit with the federal court saying that the battle over district lines was infringing on their constitutional rights. We talked with one of those plaintiffs.
In our litigation, we didn't advocate or ask the federal court to give us a specific map. We said, give us a map, give us a primary date. We want to be able to vote, and this isn't a win just for Mike Anadakis and the 7 plaintiffs. This is a win for all Democrats, all Republicans, and all independents, because now the court said, come May 28th, if the state of Ohio doesn't figure it out, we will figure it out. So all Ohioans have the right to vote.
The 2 Democrats on the commission, Senator Vernon Sykes and Representative Allison Russo, sent a letter to the commission asking for a meeting. But it takes 3 members to hold a meeting, so they need a Republican to join them. After the ruling, Secretary of State Frank LaRose, who is on the commission, stressed the court's decision and new deadline does not impact the May 3rd primary, that people should continue to cast their early ballots, and the May 3rd ballots don't have any state Senate or state House races on it. Well, so far, turnout is down for early voting in this current primary. Earlier this week, the Secretary of State told us so far 125,000 absentee ballots have been requested by mail or in person. And so far, just under 45,000 votes have been cast. We compared that data collected around the same time in the 2018 primary. That year, 172,000 absentee ballots had been requested by mail or in person, and 63,000 voters had cast their ballots already. Ohio is getting sued over a new law passed with the last budget. Columbus City Attorney Zach Klein filed a lawsuit over the so-called conscience clause. The clause protects anybody who denies health care or payment for health care because it violates their conscience. That includes vaccines, birth control, blood transfusions, treatment for AIDS and HIV, and counseling or treatment for transgender people. We spoke to the city attorney about it.
Legally, we believe that the conscience clause violates home rule, which is the ability for cities to regulate itself. It violates the Constitution's single subject rule, which is what you're talking about, on how laws are supposed to be made.
Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost responded to the lawsuit, saying the law was thoroughly vetted and passed normally. A major criminal trial came to a close this week. Dr. William Husel was found not guilty of 14 counts of murder. The trial itself took several weeks with more than 50 witnesses testifying. Jury deliberations took nearly a week, with the jury even saying at one point they were at an impasse. But in the end, the jury agreed with the defense, saying prosecutors did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Dr. Husel intended to kill his patients. Now, his defense attorney was happy with the verdict, while patients' families were not.
It was a moment that you can't put words on it. I heard the first not guilty, and I knew that there was 14. So it was an exercise in, patience, and my heart rate continued to increase as the counts continued to increase.
All these people waiting to get a verdict, and to come back not guilty. Is this what you expected?
No, I wanted to say guilty as hell.
When asked if he will practice medicine again, his attorney says that discussion is for a different day, but he is scheduled to appear before the state medical board in June to discuss his suspension. Well, this picture is inside the jury room after the verdict, showing the decorum rules when deciding this case during a marathon deliberation process. 10 TV's Richard Solomon has perspective from a law professor and a former prosecutor on the impact of this trial in years to come.
The result of the verdict in Franklin County's largest murder case. Count 14, we, the jury in this case, being duly impaneled, sworn, find the defendant not guilty as to count 14 of the indictment for murder.
Caught Rick Simmons, a law professor at Ohio State, a little off guard.
I have to say I'm surprised. I thought the prosecution did a very good job presenting a very methodical case.
Former Mount Carmel Dr. William Husel was found not guilty on all 14 counts of murder after nearly 2 months of trial. Prosecutors alleged Husel's doses of fentanyl and other drugs hastened the deaths of the patients. Initially on Monday, the jury told the judge they were at an impasse. Simmons says with a complex case like this, it's always going to be hard for 12 people to come to a unanimous verdict.
They did ask for a rereading of that reasonable doubt instruction, and so maybe that did help the jurors who were holding out for conviction on some of the counts to say, no, I think there might be reasonable doubt here, and therefore I have to acquit.
Former U.S. Attorney for Ohio's Southern District, David DeVillers, a former prosecutor himself, says the Husel case was unique.
A doctor being accused of knowingly, purposely killing people, that's pretty unusual. So I can't think of any case here in Franklin County or the Southern District of Ohio where we had something like this.
While the criminal chapter of the Husel case is now closed, a civil case is looming. But for the meantime, Simmons says Husel should appreciate this small victory.
Facing multiple life sentences must be something that's a huge weight on you. And so to have that lifted, it's obviously a great day for him.
That was Richard Solomon reporting the deposition of Dr. Husel. The civil case will start May 9th. And last 1 week in the criminal trial, Dr. Husel was described as a doctor that did what was best for his patients. The attorney representing his patients says he plans to prove otherwise. 10 Investigates has been following the story from the very beginning. You could read all of our coverage on this case right now if you go to 10tv.com/10investigates. Ohio State University President Christina Johnson gave the state of the university this week. She talked about the Intel project, debt-free education, as well as student mental health. She did not talk about on-campus and off-campus safety and security. 10 TV's Olivia Eugenio asked students their thoughts on that.
As I spoke with students Thursday night about President Johnson's State of the University address. What do you think she should be talking about?
I definitely think that in the address, she should address safety.
Anything about safety. The crime on High Street.
Safety was the word heard first.
Buckeye Nation managed COVID-19 with spirit and resolve.
But in the State of the University address, safety wasn't mentioned. Buckeyes for a Safe Ohio State is a parent group that's been very vocal about student safety. If you'll remember, they put up a billboard about student safety. They sent me a statement saying President Johnson clearly doesn't care about safety, given that she didn't say a word. We asked to speak with President Christina Johnson about why she chose not to mention safety in her 38-page address. We were sent a statement by a spokesperson. They say the health and safety of our university community is President Johnson's #1 priority, which she has reiterated repeatedly and demonstrates consistently with her actions. President Johnson devotes a weekly address to update students, faculty, and staff on the latest safety enhancements, security information, and university resources. The statement also reiterated the university's financial commitment to safety, with an additional $20 million to campus safety in the next decade, making the total budget more than $35 million a year. On and off campus, the university has added security lights, cameras at parking garages, safety rides for students, and a block watch program to help curb crime. But 2 students we spoke with say they still don't feel safe on or off campus.
We actually did have an incident where a guy followed me home and tried to break into our house, and that was traumatizing and makes me really scared to even go to my house during the day now.
A lot of people don't feel safe walking off campus anytime it's dark out. I certainly don't feel safe. I carry pepper spray with me.
Finals begin next week on campus with graduation in early May. Olivia Eugenio, 10 TV News.
University says it is closely tracking the number of aggravated assaults as well as robberies of both places and people. They say they've been told by Columbus police that numbers are down significantly since fall of 2021. America's Teacher of the Year is representing the Buckeye State in a big way.
I'm just so blessed, and I work with such amazing students each and every day.
Up next, we'll take you inside his classroom. A lack of substitute teachers is causing problems for schools across the state. Up next, we break down a bill that aims to fix that issue. Welcome back. An Ohio teacher just got one of the highest honors in the nation this week. CBS Mornings announced the National Teacher of the Year, and you might recognize him.
And the 2022 Teacher of the Year, this is my drum roll, it's none other than Kurt Russell.
After being voted as Ohio Teacher of the Year, Mr. Russell was then nominated on the national level. Now he holds the title. Face the state anchor Tracy Townsend talked with him this week, just a few hours after the big announcement.
Kurt Russell is a history teacher at Oberlin High School. Mr. Russell, thank you so much for joining us. Let me say congratulations to you. And we are so glad you have time to talk with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate the warm wishes. Thank you so much.
So let's get right into it. As Ohio Teacher of the Year, did you think you'd end up on this national stage on CBS this morning?
Absolutely not. Honestly, I did not even believe I would become Ohio Teacher of the Year, so let alone National Teacher of the Year. But I'm just so blessed, and I work with such amazing students each and every day, and I'd just like to spread the message of love and respect to all teachers out there.
So when we talked with you in February, you shared that it really is your mission to create an opportunity for students in the classroom, in the curriculum. How do you do that in a history class?
Well, I think first of all, you have to be intentional. And so I try to provide courses that students see themselves in. Diversity within curriculum is so important because students are more engaged when they see themselves. And so creating new courses such as African American history class, race, gender, and oppression class, Black music in the African diaspora are courses that students could relate to. And I try to do that every other year or so to create new courses so students can see themselves.
And so, those classes, I remember, I may be dating myself, taking classes like that in college. And now there's so much focus on history and diversity, and we're hearing the criticism for things like CRT. Can you address how what you are doing is education, not necessarily CRT?
Yes. Yes. Even with CRT, I do not teach CRT. What I'm trying to do is to normalize the learning for all students and to make sure that all students, as I said previously, will see themselves in the curriculum. So making sure that women see themselves in the curriculum, making sure that African Americans see themselves in the curriculum, making sure that the LGBTQ plus community see themselves in the curriculum. And that's key for me.
And so now that you've been recognized really on this national level, will this influence your priorities in the classroom?
No, I'm a teacher, and so students come first. And so what I would like to do is continue that message of spreading knowledge and making sure that students feel welcome in my classroom, just on a national stage. And so if I have the opportunity to travel and to send that message, I'll be very grateful to do so.
And your students really shared that you inspire them to confront the uncomfortable, that you command respect, and that everyone can have input. How do you pay that forward? You have talked about teachers who've influenced you. How do you pay that forward?
Well, I pay it forward by just creating a classroom that is safe, a classroom that represents all students. And I think that's the key. So the key to education is making sure that students feel comfortable, making sure that students feel safe, and that's how I spread that message of the holistic learning of students.
There was one student who said he wishes everyone could have a conversation with you. We're so glad that we got to have that conversation. Probably too old for your class, but congratulations again. You're really a great teacher. We're excited for you.
Well, I really appreciate it. Once again, thank you so much for having me on this morning.
And that was Tracy Townsend with that interview and conversation. School teachers have been at the forefront throughout the pandemic, but some experts say our state is still having trouble finding enough educators. That's why Representative Adam Byrd is sponsoring a bill that would make it easier for people to become a substitute teacher. Now, we should note a bill was passed during the height of the pandemic, which allowed people to become subs without a bachelor's degree. However, that law is set to expire. But Representative Byrd says the shortage is not over. It's why he's sponsoring House Bill 583.
And or sometimes we've seen situations in Ohio where the PE teacher, the music teacher, the art teacher, those classes might have to be canceled for the day so that those teachers can go sub in math or reading. And so when you allow a school and give them flexibility to bring in somebody else that might not have a bachelor's degree, that helps keep the school open, and you don't have to cancel school. You don't have to go to remote. And so what this bill does is continue for another 2 years what we've had for the past 2 years.
Now, essentially, House Bill 583 would give Ohio schools the ability to create their own rules when it comes to substitute teacher requirements. For example, eliminating the need for a 4-year degree. Representative Byrd also noted he and other lawmakers in Ohio are working to pass a bill that would make it easier for former teachers to come back to the profession. Both bills are in an effort to deal with our state's shortage of teachers. There is also a new push from Senate leaders to make sure all kids have access to pre-kindergarten. Right now, parents in Ohio are responsible for finding and paying for their kids' pre-K. But Senator Herschel Craig is working to bring more money to our state that would make the schooling free. He says it will not only impact the extra burden for low-income families, but even the playing field, leveling it for all younger Ohioans.
Not only low-income families, certainly that is critical for all of our children. But there's the economic importance of this issue involves all of our families. With COVID and what has occurred, there are families that have been affected throughout our state, and some of those parents, because of some of the issues of the workforce issues, have not returned to work. And so, that impacts our economy because they're needing to be with our children. And so there is a very real economic impact. It is not just a question of we believe it's the right thing to do. There certainly is this imperative, this economic imperative that affects our state as well.
The universal pre-K funding would kick in as soon as the Build Back Better plan is passed by the U.S. Congress. 10 TV asked Craig how Ohio lawmakers plan to address the issue if the funding is not cleared. He told us they would still need to work to make pre-kindergarten more accessible by using already available state funding. The city of Columbus responding to controversial House Bill 616. It's a bill that would impact how your kids learn about race, gender, and sexuality in the classroom. Well, this week, City Council President Shannon Hardin laid out the group's resolution in opposition to the bill. The main goal was to urge the General Assembly to defeat the bill.
House Bill 616 restricts educational materials and discussions on diversity, equity, and inclusion, while also limiting educational content on gender identity and sexual orientation. Legislation like HB 616 threatens to damage Ohio's brand, repelling prospective companies, employees, and current residents, limiting economic prospect. This bill is a solution in search of a problem, and that it appears to establish restrictions on institutional practices that currently do not exist in the state of Ohio. The bill proposed is an assault on teachers and would subject local school districts to frivolous lawsuits, removing resources from the classroom to pay for endless legal battles. This bill does not represent the values of Columbus, Franklin County, or the state of Ohio. So be it resolved by the Council of the City of Columbus that the Columbus City Council hereby expresses its strong disapproval of House Bill 616 as a proposal that only advances principles of discrimination and inequality, and in that the Ohio General Assembly should defeat this proposed bill and should ensure that the state legislature does not make any future attempts to constrain or censor education on diversity, equity and inclusion, gender identity, or sexual orientation.
Columbus City school administrators have also responded to the bill. They say they stand united in opposition to the shameful and divisive legislation, while supporters say the topics have no place inside the classroom. There is support for the legislation. One of its sponsors says that it will protect education. In a news release, State Representative Mike Loychik said, quote, "The classroom is a place to seek answers for our children without political activism. Parents deserve and should be provided a say in what is taught to their children in schools." There's been a recent increase in stolen guns in Columbus. All of these guns were recovered by police. Coming up next, why detectives are concerned a new law could make the problem even worse. Columbus police are calling it an alarming trend. Gun owners leaving loaded guns unlocked in their cars only to have them stolen. 10 TV's Kevin Landers explains why police are even more worried about these crimes because of a new Ohio law that takes effect next month.
All it takes is one unlocked car with a gun inside for a criminal to instantly be armed.
We're absolutely alarmed by the amount of guns that are taken from cars that are parked and unoccupied.
Nearly every night this month, someone in Columbus had a gun stolen from their car. Police reports show most of the guns stolen were loaded.
10 TV searched Columbus police reports just this month and found 25 people reported their guns stolen from their cars, and those who knew how the crooks got in said their cars were unlocked.
If you leave your gun in a car, whether it's locked or not, and your car is broken into and taken, that you have contributed to the possibility of a criminal going out and committing a heinous act against someone else in the city of Columbus.
This one, you mount this to your car?
Eric Delbert is a licensed Columbus firearms dealer. He says every gun owner should own a lockbox for their weapon.
We're talking about a burden on society that you have added to by allowing your firearm to be out there in the possession of a felon. I guarantee you the guys stealing it aren't ones who can go to a gun store and buy one.
Adding to his concerns about stolen firearms is Ohio's new permitless carry law, which starts next month. Delbert expects thefts to increase, and so do police, as more people will soon be able to buy a weapon without training.
I would anticipate it because, again, it's new people carrying a firearm for the first time in that capacity.
We're absolutely concerned because the fact that we won't have a requirement to have a license to carry a firearm in the state of Ohio anymore will absolutely increase the amount of firearms that people will carry at the ready, whether it's in their car or on their person. So the potential for a firearm to be stolen is most certainly going to increase.
A crime police say that can be prevented with a $40 steel box. Kevin Landers, 10 TV News.
Now, police say if you don't have a lockbox, put your gun in your trunk and never leave it underneath your seat. The Ohio Attorney General's office created the Ohio Stolen Gun Database, which allows anyone to search by serial number if the gun you've purchased is stolen. Now, according to the AG's office, the website has had about 6,000 page views this year alone, an indication that people are actually doing their research. Well, thank you for spending part of your weekend with us. And remember, if it affects you, your family, and Ohio, we're here to make sure those accountable face the state.